Near mint condition, the home of collected editions. Oh my gosh, look at that panel of Batman. You have the absolute, you have the deluxe. DC Comics firing on all cylinders.
Welcome back, all you minties, to Near Mint Condition. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the DC Finest Batman, The Killing Joke, and Other Stories Trade Paperback Collected Edition. Let's run into it. Hello, everybody. I am Dom of X, Near Mint Condition Manager and Associate Editor of ComicReleases.com. Today, we're going to be taking a look, again, at this super big DC Finest Batman, The Killing Joke, and Other Stories. Although I wish we could talk about the other stories in this book a little bit more than the trade paperback, but I know that The Killing Joke will definitely be the big seller for anybody who is looking to get this collected edition. If the hands be where it may, here is a look at the front of the book. We do have Alan Moore, Mike W. Barr, and Brian Bolland displayed at the bottom. But man, if you could add in Alan Grant, Norm Breyfogle, Jim Starlin, Jim Aparo, there's a couple of other guys I would have loved to also see get top billing here, but I understand that your big selling point is, again, going to be The Killing Joke and Other Stories. All right, here is a look at the spine of the book. I actually brought over DC's Finest Batman Year 1 and Year 2 for comparison. So this is what the spines are going to look like. Here's a look at them vertically. About the same width for the DC Bullet logo. Although the Bullet logo, I don't know if you guys can tell, on the right, it is a little bit darker than the DC logo on the left-hand side. But the hue is also a little bit darker, as you can see on the right-hand side opposed to the left. The left a little bit of a lighter sky bluish tone than the right. And then, of course, you take away this particular book, we can see that the spine has a Jerry Bingham Batman drawn specifically for the bottom part of the spine. I also wanted to take a look at both of the backs. As you can see here, we have a purple, not a purple, but more of an indigo color for the Batman Year 1 and Year 2 collection. This collection, however, features a violet, more vibrant, or saturated purple, if you may, than the left-hand one would suggest. This is something that I do find interesting, particularly in the case because I thought that these were going to be a little bit more uniform, and I was expecting them to be more uniform, but here we are. We do have a difference in the back. There is going to be some nitpicking between me and this, but again, that is just me. This is, again, a look at the back. All it takes is one bad day in reference to the Killing Joke one-shot, and the synopsis down below, and also with the years highlighted on the back of the book. Let's go ahead and glide into Batman, shall we? Let's go ahead and glide into DC Finest Batman, The Killing Joke, and Other Stories trade paperback. On the cover, as well as the inside, is art featured by Brian Bolland. On the left-hand side, of course, is your editorial information, your collected edition information, copyrighted material information, of course, all the people who worked on this book. On the right-hand side, you will see a table of contents, and for the most part, it is in publication order with a couple of exceptions, and I will get around to that in the commentary I have for you all. There is no, as this is a post-crisis collected edition book, there is no warning of there are themes here that might not portray modern times, because by all accounts now, we are in modern times for DC. This collected edition is at 608 pages and collects Batman issues 413 to 422, Detective Comics issues 580 to 589, Batman the Son of the Demon original graphic novel, and Batman the Killing Joke issue number 1, or the one-shot thereof. This has been previously collected in a couple of sparse trade paperbacks here and whatnot that'll be displayed on your screen. And by that, I do mean select random issues. And of course, the Demon Trilogy has been previously collected in a magazine oversized hardcover, which is getting a brand new printing this year. But as of actually right now, and I don't want to get into it, we don't know when Lunar is going to be putting that back up. Of course, we've had Killing Joke in trade paperback form, absolute form, deluxe hardcover. You want to name every single edition out there. It's available, as it is one of the most famous, or infamous, I should say, Batman stories ever put to pen and told. Man, we have a slew of writers on this book, from Mike W. Barr to Joe Duffy, who takes over on some fill-in issues in this book. Of course, Joe Duffy also did pen the Catwoman issues in the 90s. Alan Grant, John Wagner, or Wagner. I attempted to say Wagner due to the German name of it. Jim Starlin, of course, Alan Moore, and Lewis Clare, almost said Sinclair, but Lewis Clare and Steve Pearsall on a backup issue of Detective Comics. And, of course, the art in here for the 95% for the most part is absolutely stellar. From Jim Aparo, Norm Breyfogle, Dick Giordano, Mark D. Bright, Kieran Dwyer, Jerry Bingham, of course, and Brian Bolland. Those two, of course, taking the top spots, as they do have the two most famous stories that are in this collected edition. This has everything that you could possibly want if you are a Batman fan. If you want heartbreak, if you want some nice family stories. I mean, Batman saves a couple of people, maybe gets some people back together. Maybe he's saving other lives of different citizens. You've got duplicates of certain characters that Batman is trying to figure out. Hey, is this the real villain that I'm facing? Is this the fake one? Why are there a couple of these fake ones running around? What's the meaning and the mystery behind it? And maybe he also makes some promises to brand new friends that we are introduced into this specific ongoing for both Batman and Detective Comics. Just like the previous volume, we start off with a one-off story. Like in the previous volume, we did have a tie into Legends. And in this one, we do have not a tie-in, but we also have a one-off story by Joe Duffy. Then we are moving into the thick of it all. And I'll get into the Jim Starlin of it later, but I am flipping through the Batman Son of the Demon story in here right now. Man, I really, really wish that introduction by Mark Hamill was included in here. There are no extras in this book. What you get is what you get, but they do include the entirety of the Son of the Demon original graphic novel here. I reread it just a couple of days ago, and it is still just as excellent as I remember from the first time. You want to talk about a well-paced book. You want to talk about a great introduction to the all Ghouls, of course, Ra's and Talia, and how they are significant in the roles that they play in Bruce's life. This is the story for you. You want to talk about a couple of some brand new villains who are also introduced into the fray specifically for this story, and how that's going to affect the relationship between not only Ra's and Batman, but also Talia and Batman. This is the story for you. This is where Mike W. Barr, I think, has his best days on the script. This is some of my favorite Batman storytelling in this specific time period, and obviously it is one of the most key important stories ever. Grant Morrison would do some things with it to properly introduce this into the post-crisis DC canon fold, but it is just as significant today as it was in the 80s. If you are a big fan of the Ra's, if you're a big fan of Batman just in general, the imagery here by Jerry Bingham is just absolutely spectacular, from the silhouettes to the shadows, to the way that he just incorporates the dread of Talia, Bruce, and everybody else in the story is absolutely phenomenal. Reminds me a lot of Mike Grell, honestly, the way that the cities and the structures are also drawn in this book. But I would be remiss if I didn't get a chance to not only talk about Jim Starlin, but also talk about the overall fold of all the creators who are in here. This really is Jim Starlin's book, if I may. The other stories that I was alluding to earlier, we had seen Jim Starlin in the previous volume of DC Finest Batman. He was in charge, of course, of some of those Batman issues right before and also right after Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli were on those 4 issues of Batman to reintroduce the caped cowl to proper DC continuity. Say, hey, we're going to make a year 1, and this is going to be awesome. Starlin is going to do or handle everything else. Obviously one of the issues he drew in here. But he is joined, for the most part, by Jim Aparo, who, of course, is one of the Batman artists of all time and one of the longest-running Batman artists of any generation. And this is where he gets his shine. You will see characters pop up in here, just such as Two-Face, and the introduction of the post-crisis versions of Scarface and Ventriloquist. Scarface and Ventriloquist have been not absent from, I'll just say, I will say they have been a little bit absent from regular DC continuity. I think that there has been a stray away from the want to do a Scarface or a Ventriloquist story because the creators in charge don't necessarily want to do one. At least this is for Batman and Detective. I don't want to spoil for anybody who is reading current comics. There is a particular book I like. But this is Jim Starlin and his time to shine on this Batman book. And you get to see the tone that he finally is able to lay out as he settles in to the main run. This also has the first DC or post-crisis DC reunification of Dick Grayson, this time as Nightwing, and Bruce Wayne as Batman. It is one of the most chilling stories in here. One of my favorite issues in the previous DC Finest was the proper post-crisis canon of Dick Grayson finally quitting as Robin and settling into his own. And we now get to see Disco Wing not only in its full glory, but also the status quo that Wolfman set up, seeing how the creators here decided to put them back together on the page. And you also get Jason Todd talking about his status as Robin with Dick Grayson. It is one of my favorite issues, if not my favorite issue in the specific story. I love it when the Bat family shows up. I love it when characters like that get back together, maybe in more awkward ways than one. And sometimes it will leave you completely heartbroken to see characters maybe never being on great terms again. And it saddens me to see, but I think it's the perfect way to get someone like Dick Grayson to grow out of the shell, and also to tell Bruce that his time as Robin and his time as his sidekick is officially over. It's time for him to grow up. And this also is a perfect time for Jason Todd to shine. This is, without spoiling ahead of what is and what will come, you do get to see the appearances, all the appearances of Jason Todd as Robin, and how he commands himself as the guy right next to Bruce, and what his personality is going to be. And of course, the very, very tight underwear that he decides to display as the major difference between him and Dick Grayson as Robin. And I also really do like that Two-Face is very much tied in with Jason Todd's past, as Two-Face does have a lot of connections between the two characters. Now, one thing I will say, as we fold through this particular part of the book, this is the 10 Nights of the Beast 4-issue parter by Jim Starlin and, of course, Jim Aparo. And what better way to introduce a brand new character to the DC universe than to make this, whoever this person is. This is a completely brand new character at the time. And for those who might be wondering, yes, I am talking about the KGBeast, that same KGBeast who does some inhospitable things to a couple of DC characters in the 2016 run of Batman. This is the introduction to him. And what better way to introduce to him, I should have said earlier, is to find a couple of government officials who are completely tied in with the Star Wars or the Strategic Defense Missile System. We do get some appearances with actual political leaders in the 1980s in this four-parter. And this is where, unrelated, I got a lot of my Discord emotes from these particular 4 pages. in this book about 10 Nights of the Beast, I should say. It is a wonderful introduction not only to a brand new character, but this is, again, not only just that, not only the stamp of approval from Jim Starlin. Starlin is going to write a story later in Batman, the Batman ongoing line, not in this book, but the next volume of DC Finest, whenever that might be, that will completely startle and shock the Dark Knight's world and all of the people around him. And of course, I will cover that the next time I am on. But until then, you get to have this 4-issue parter, all drawn by Jim Aparo, all with Gordon, and however will the U.S. government and the Gotham City Police Department deal with this brand new character from a far-off land that also just happens to be a major factor in the DC universe at this time, in other ongoing titles such as Suicide Squad and Checkmate. There are also a couple of other tie-ins with specific events such as Millennium. Earlier, I crossed through the Millennium tie-ins, which are also done by Jim Starlin and also done by Joe Duffy. Joe Duffy comes back to do the Detective Comics annual, and if you are a really big fan of the Jeff Johns Green Lantern run, and you are like, man, I remember those Manhunters that showed up and had a completely different origin in Secret Origin by Jeff Johns and Ivan Reyes, I would definitely suggest trying to pick this up because there is more to their backstory in this Millennium event that is covered by these particular Batman issues. You don't need to particularly know anything beforehand because they do try to speed you up with the pages that are completely important along with the Millennium 4-issue limited series that went on at the time. So I wouldn't worry about that, but I will also say that do tread warning. I hope someday we will get a Millennium Omnibus or a collected edition. Maybe a DC Finest of Millennium. We shall see. There are also a couple of other characters who pop up in here that you are familiar with, maybe from a movie. In this specific DC Finest, we are introduced to this version, or this part of the DC Universe that has the Ratcatcher. If you guys don't know who the Ratcatcher is, we are properly introduced to them in these particular pages by John Wagner and also by Alan Grant. And who can say no to Norm Breyfogle? Norm Breyfogle also does some fantastic pages with Scarface and Ventriloquist. I really, really love the way that the reds are used specifically in that book. But not only that, if you are a big fan of the James Gunn Suicide Squad movie, you do get to see this version of the Ratcatcher as opposed to the one that we had in the Suicide Squad movie that we had. So if you are maybe familiar with that version, you finally get to see how the DC Universe actually has that version of the character in the pages of this DC Finest. I also appreciate DC for lining up all of these two-parters or four-parters, depending on what you want to call them. These sort of short stories all in the right order instead of bouncing around. It's something that I think you just have to definitely give them a round of applause on because they have been following at least a lot of these with the mapping of publication or published date order. You don't have that issue in this DC Finest. All of these are wonderfully read through, and you don't have to worry about going out from, I'm going from Batman to Detective, because that 10 Nights of the Beast story are all Batman issues. It's issues 417 to 420, but they're all in sequential reading order. You don't need to worry about going back and forth like maybe you did if you were reading the Jonathan Hickman Avengers hardcovers back in the day. But this is something that I really, really appreciate that they made a due effort to make this from their line. Issue number 589 also has a backup, which is included in this. This is also, again, you have the former and the latter half of Alan Grant, who makes his stake to claim with John Wagner and plenty of these stories. Like I mentioned earlier with Scarface and Ventriloquist, they managed to bring them into the fold with Post-Crisis. But in one of these issues, there's a three-parter in issues 587 to 589. And in issue 589, they do have a backup story, which is included in here. And if I can also fold over to it, it is a Poison Ivy story. So you do get the full shock with every single page of this particular book. If you are a fan of any single Batman villain, that isn't the Joker, you are still going to have a really, really awesome treat with this book. In fact, it says here, there is a bonus book added. So it wasn't part of the issue, but it was included if you bought a copy of issue 589 of Detective Comics. It also does feature Dean Haspiel art, which I actually found really cool. This little mini Poison Ivy story, and getting to see more of how she and her Pamela Isley and Batman correlate, and also get to see some of their relationship unfold. Now everybody's been asking, what are they doing with Batman the Killing Joke in terms of the colors that they're using and everything else? What is the verdict on Batman the Killing Joke? Before I go over that, they do have the cover for the issue. They did the same thing in Batman Year 1 and Year 2, and also with Batman Son of the Demon in this DC Finest, where they have title pages that aren't cut out. They have specific or customary title pages in the folds of these books. These are the original colors. They are not the brand new colors that are in the second half of the Absolute version of Batman the Killing Joke. And if I had a penny for every time that I've read Killing Joke, I would only have 7 cents. But it's kind of weird that I guess how that happened. I have read this for a book club. I have read this for work. I have read this for here. I feel like if I mentioned any single thing that you guys already don't know, you would probably be running up saying, we already know this about Killing Joke. But yes, this is the Alan Moore and Brian Bolland one-shot that was very consequential to DC continuity, as it did mark one character out due to the events of what happened in this book. But it also is, of course, a dive into the ever-growing and I don't even know what you want to call it, relationship between Batman and the Joker. But it still does haunt me, all of these pages, between them, between Joker, between Batman, and of course Jim Gordon, and the ever-growing last page. Actually, you know what? The real quick story that I want to talk about in terms of the Killing Joke is that I actually found out about that specific last page. I was way too young to be reading this book. Grant Morrison was on, I think they were on the Kevin Smith Fat-Man and Batman podcast. And they talked about how the last page, they thought, oh, well, the last laugh or the push over is that Batman actually does manage to crush the Joker's windpipe because he can't have enough of it. I don't know if that tracks with their Batman run and making everything canon, because of course we do have a couple of characters who do come out of this, I will not say unscathed, but let's just say that specific podcast finally got me over the ledge to read this, and man, I still am shocked every single time that I do. But that, as they say, is that. Now, if you're looking to read Batman DC Finest, The Killing Joke and Other Stories, please check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltzcomicshop.com, and you can use the code Near Mint Condition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more.
And that is going to be it from me. I am Dom of X. Let me know down in the comments section below if you are going to pick this DC Finest up, as it does have all of the original colors and whatnot for all of these stories. That is it from me. You be you. Please stay safe, Minties, and dominate the day wherever you go.